Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And as I had promised last week, I was telling you a little bit of a heads up of what we had coming in June. This week, my guest, and you know me from doing this every week, I like to say how I know my guest or how I came about having them on the show, because I do think it's so important that we are open to meeting new people, making new connections, keeping folks in our lives from, the past that we don't know maybe how we might be able to help one another. So this week's guest, Chelsea, and I forgot to, of course, to ask her the correct way of saying her last name, Manganaro. I can be corrected if I'm wrong.
Correct.
um, Thank you. Chelsea Manganaro is my guest this week. And Chelsea is someone that I have heard great things about. I've never actually met Chelsea in person before today, but Chelsea's reputation is stellar in the area. Chelsea has different locations of yoga studios, a cafe, and she has started the couple of years ago, and I'll learn more myself today, the Northeastern Pennsylvania Yoga Festival, which is highly attended. And so I have heard of Chelsea. I knew she was a fabulous entrepreneur as well as a yoga instructor. And I am fortunate this year. I'm going to be doing some laughter yoga at the festival on Sunday at 2 p.m. So please, if you're coming out, make sure you stop by for some laughs. That will be a little raucous. We won't be like peaceful meditating, but we'll be laughing, and it is good for our health. So without further ado, that's how I got to know Chelsea, just from all the great work she's doing here in the region that I live in, Northeastern Pennsylvania. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, Chelsea.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And like I said, it is true. And I don't know if you're from this region, and I will ask you to share just a little bit about yourself, but if you are, or if you are not and you've been here, everybody knows everybody. So, like, I've heard of you, had never met you, but I'd heard about you from so many different people.
Awesome. I hope good things.
Yes, of course. So, tell me if you don't mind and share with my listeners just a little bit before we get into the festival and your businesses, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am an entrepreneur, I guess is the easiest way to describe it because I have my hands on a lot of different things. So a lot of balls up in the air right now, including the cafe, the yoga studio. I have Airbnbs, some commercial properties. I went to school for finance and operations management, so it helped kind of build these businesses. But I did spend a lot of time in the industry as well. So I spent 10 years in finance before fully diving into my businesses. So it helped me kind of create a good foundation of where we are now. And now I have this ecosystem of everything helping one of the other aspects of the business continue to grow. So the yoga festival has been just kind of a culmination of all of those things. So the festival has been going on now for 9 years. It's the 11th event. So that became my life, the businesses, and I really feel like it's hard to differentiate myself outside of Nearme Yoga or NEPA Yoga Festival, or the cafe now and the roof at Oppenheim. So yeah, it became kind of my reason for waking up every day. But my background, my school, that all led me here. So it's all kind of wonderful.
So there's so much you said that I want to talk about. I love that that's what I'm lacking. Like, I left my day job to do like my Laugh to Live business. I'm an independent marketing contractor, but I always said I was never sorry a day I left my day job at Blue Cross, but I did not have that foundation, the background. And the one thing, if I did have that DeLorean from Back to the Future and I went back, I would have taken maybe some more workshops or courses to learn more about business. So I think it's amazing or awesome that you had that background, because that's got to be useful. I mean, a lot of people want to follow their passion. And when they start a business, it's like, wow, this is hard. It is not easy. And having that knowledge has to be helpful for you.
Absolutely. I think it's the only reason I'm still here. Uh, because it's consuming owning your own business. It's 24 hours. It's not 9 to 5, right? My first career seemed like it was so overwhelming, but it was mostly because I was stuck doing one task, and that's just not who I am. So as much as the knowledge of what I learned has become invaluable, I know that I wasn't in the right fit of doing one task, and that is what makes me a good entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let me ask you, are you from the region or
Yes.
did you
So, yep.
relocate? Okay.
So I'm from, I grew up around this area. Most of my life I spent in Moscow. So I went to school here. It's not even here anymore, but it was St. Anne's as my grade school. I went to prep, and then I went to the University of Scranton. So I spent my whole younger years here, and then got my first job in this area as well. At the same time, my cousin moved to San Diego, and I moved her out there. And as soon as I got a small taste of San Diego, I just had to go back and experience it for myself. So, about 18 months after my first job, which was at CSS Industries, which is like Paper Magic, um, locally known, but it has a lot of different avenues of businesses that I worked with them. I left and went to San Diego. There, I was a small fish with a lot of competition. So here I had no problem kind of getting almost anything I wanted and any job. I had been overqualified for almost everything. I had went to the university and got 2 degrees in my 4 years there. So on top of that, worked full-time bartending and an internship, and I worked at Scott Trade. So I worked in the stock market, and that's kind of where I thought I wanted to go, but it just dramatically changed at that time. That's kind of when Scott Trade and when we were able to start buying our own stocks online, and everything kind of changed in that industry. So what I planned for myself, of course, very different than where I am right now, but all relative, right? So um, I eventually did move to San Diego, and that's when I truly fell in love with my yoga practice, because I didn't find a job right off the bat, and I had some time to really learn who I was and what I wanted from this world and what I was able to give to it. So I helped a studio owner there kind of build her studio. So I moved out there literally, not that this is shocking for California, but right across the street from where I lived, a brand new studio opened the same week that I moved there. So I kind of was like the first member. I helped her get the business going, helping her with some of the computer work and checking people in. And it was kind of like a little exchange for me to be able to take some free classes and become a part of the community. And I met so many wonderful people at that time, and of course found my true yoga as well. So when I moved home, which I eventually did because I did, of course, everything happens at the same time. So I got a job in finance, FP&A, at a startup company, and it was a good job, but it was a startup company. So 23 years old, money talks a lot more than it probably should have. But I was contacted by Lockheed Martin here to move home, and I started a contract career there. So I really liked negotiating contracts, and that's what I did there for 5 years. So it all kind of went in the same avenue that it needed to develop kind of where I'm at right now. So I moved home from San Diego. Then when I moved home, I felt a very big disconnect from the studio that I had there to coming home and this new person that I was, with all this information about who I wanted to be and whatnot. So I said at that point I was going to open a yoga studio. So that's where Nearme yoga came from. Before that, I always wanted to own a business, but the Nearme name, which is actually, it used to be a Google glitch. When anyone would search restaurant near me, all the restaurants would come up everywhere, not just exactly where you were, because there wasn't enough technology at that point for it. So at that point, I'm like, well, I really don't want to worry about a restaurant right now. So I really love yoga. Let me open up a yoga studio. And that was when the inception of Near Me Yoga came about, and I used that name for the studio versus the restaurant that I planned for, which was like an Italian restaurant, high end, whatnot. So, but I loved yoga, and I was ready to dive deeper into that and provide a community style studio like I had in California. So I moved home, and a year later, the yoga studio was opened. And fast forward 10 years and here we are. So, in that time, I did open a few other studios, and my plan was to have 5 studios and then leave my job at that point. And unfortunately, and fortunately, I kind of got pulled into the carrot being dangled in front of me a few times. And I closed 2 studios down. I stayed with the Moosic and the Peckville location, which are like my 2 babies. And I stayed a little bit longer. Then I opened the cafe. Uh, I think it's 6 years now or 7 years. Um, yeah, I think it's 6 years. It's 6 years old. So 6 years ago, I opened the cafe, and the first year was slow, so it was fine. And then as soon as it picked up, whole different animal, completely different animal. It's not just popping in to teach a yoga class. It's like inventory, management, having to figure out menus and making sure that the food's not going bad and that it's also super fresh, because that's kind of what the plan was. So um, all of my endeavors are because of something that I saw the area lacked and something I enjoy. So it's easy for me to sell it. It doesn't seem like work ever. It's, when I'm coming here, I'm never like, oh, I'm on my way to work. I'm always like, I'm on my way to the studio, or I'm on my way to teach, or I'm going to the cafe, which is different than, the 9 to 5 jobs or careers that are work, more or less.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, and I want to, then we'll get into more about the yoga and the yoga festival. But it's interesting, or at least it's my perception. When I think of you think of business or finance as like a certain type, right? Or it's serious. And then you have yoga, which I think is so different, like so relaxed, and so you're supposed to get in tune with yourself. Do you find that, like, is that it helps really balance you, or is it your personality that it feeds, because there's this side of you and that side of you? I just think it, and I think it's fantastic, because clearly you have the business knowledge that is so needed to keep these businesses going and successful. But talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's even funnier and more ironic than that, because my job at Lockheed was selling bombs.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So it was really ironic, more or less, because what I was doing for the yoga community was like the opposite of what I was doing there. So I understood that, and I also understood why I was doing it as well. I did identify as a contract negotiator much more than an entrepreneur or a yoga instructor. Um, Although I think most people like knew me as like, Chelsea the yoga girl, like forever, that's what people would say. For me, I didn't identify as that. So I identified more on the other side, but I do think that without yoga, I wouldn't be who I was and able to negotiate in the way that I was negotiating with mostly men in a type of position like that. So completely different avenues, but at the same time, they intertwined. So I allowed yoga to be something that wasn't just for people that wanted to come sit and lay down. It was for, and especially then when I would teach, it was a lot faster paced power yoga than was generally like in the area at the time, because that's what I liked and needed. You know, I always joke that yoga burns the chaos out of us, and some of us have more chaos than others, and I'm definitely one of them. So it did help balance it out, but I took what I learned about myself from yoga and was able to bring that also into my job and my career, and how I negotiate it with individuals and interact it with them and help.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. And I think it's a certain kind of, not that I'm trying to blow smoke here, but like for you to realize that, like that wisdom, and I think people, that's where a lot of us might have a disconnect, where like, look at who we are and utilizing our skills and trying to create that balance. It must work really well. I mean, what, imagine if they were fighting one another, right? Like it's, instead
Yeah.
it's working together, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And it
love that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it is hard because everyone, if you're a yoga instructor, it's like, oh, well, like that's not yoga like if you do like XYZ. And it's like, what? No, that's not what yoga in the Western civilization is right now. It's to help us just be better versions of ourselves, to acknowledge it and be aware of it.
I love that. Yeah, because there's also, I mean, I think we're getting, unfortunately, everything is either this or that in the world between politics and extreme thinking. Well, you're this or you're that. And we need to get away from that, obviously. But like that idea or the stereotype that, oh, you have to be walking around like in a robe or something, right? And just be
Yeah.
like so kind. I mean, obviously, it's important to be kind, but we're all human. So I love that, like you're saying, it's to help us be better versions of ourselves, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all need that. No, I was going to say that ability to negotiate, I think is fantastic because that's something I don't have. And I think a lot of women, unfortunately, lacking confidence a lot of times or that imposter syndrome. So asking for what you deserve for
Mhm.
pricing and things like that. So the fact that you have that experience as well, I think is fantastic because you know how to say, all right, I know what I'm worth or I know what this thing is worth in business. So let's get to what's fair here. Yeah.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
got to be
It it's
helpful.
it is helpful, but I still shortchange myself all of the time. I look back and I'm like, "What? How did I even get myself in this?" So, it does happen no matter what, and it doesn't matter how much skill sets you have. Still, sometimes I think as, um, not even just women, I just think as people, we shortchange ourselves, and sometimes we get paid for things that we maybe shouldn't have. So it goes both ways. I always think of everything that we do as some sort of exchange. So whether it is monetary or it's some other version of an exchange, it comes to us exactly how it's supposed to. So that was difficult for me because I always had that mindset when it came down to like specific numbers, you know, and I knew that there was like a little window of how much we can get. So it did help because I'm like, listen, you're not taking this money home, so let's just figure this out as quick as possible.
Yeah, yeah. So you have, and just for those listening, of course, if you're not in the region, but maybe you'll come to visit the yoga festival here in the Montage Mountain. But for those folks who live in northeastern Pennsylvania, Chelsea has the studio in Moosic and in Peckville, and now you have the cafe in Moosic, and you have a rooftop area, which is great that you opened up.
Yeah,
Now you
that's
there
where
is
I'm
not a cafe in Peckville though, right? That's the
not
studio.
yet.
That's the studio. Not yet. Okay, so we'll say not yet. And then your most recent endeavor, and again, folks who live in Northeast PA, I have not checked it out yet, but I'm super excited because seeing it on Instagram, I came home from vacation. I'm like, how did I not know this was happening? This is awesome. It's a
Yeah.
rooftop bar on top of it was Oppenheim building when I was a kid. I think it was closed, but my parents told me stories of it. So on top now, there's a very cool rooftop bar with nice drinks and a limited, we could say, menu that's being provided, the food by your cafe. Is that right?
Mhm. Yep, yep, and it's amazing. The sunset is beautiful. It's gonna be the place to be this summer. So we're doing it as a pop-up. So anytime that it's nice out, you can hop up on the roof. It's right on Lackawanna Avenue. A lot of people are not really sure where it is and how to park and how to get in, but you go right through the front door, go into the elevators. It is labeled on the elevator. It's the fifth floor. You click it, walk out, and you're probably going to be shocked that this beautiful space is right here in Scranton.
I think it's great. And you mentioned earlier, so this is going to continue and you'll even expand, possibly doing some yoga on the rooftop and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start doing some live music, yoga and brunch, which is like, one of my things that I've been doing for 10 years. And again, just like bringing new people into yoga and in a fun way, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of that's the goal, and that's still even the goal for the festival, you know, trying new things. And if it's because they came and got to have some brunch and a mimosa and they're brand new to yoga and they fall in love with it, then, I did my job and I spread yoga as best as I know how. And that's kind of one of those like gray areas where people are like, how could you mix these two things? And it's like, well, sometimes people need a little nudge. That doesn't mean that every time they come to yoga, they're going to have a mimosa. It just means maybe the first time that's how they got there. And maybe it's the 500th time, but it's one way to just kind of liven up their practice and get out, hang out with their friends, maybe get a new person in. And I ultimately think of myself as a promoter of yoga. like a prophet of yoga, just kind of spreading the yoga wherever I can. So if it's through the cafe downstairs, that allows people to walk in the building that normally would not have, and walk through and say, oh, wow, I didn't know there was a yoga studio here. I don't get hurt by that. I just understand that they weren't ready to see it yet.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So to talk a little bit about the festival. So the festival you said is it's in the ninth year, right? And
It's
it's
the
a
yeah, the
2-day
ninth year.
event.
Yeah, we've done
The
it
ninth
a
year.
couple times, twice. Yeah.
Okay. So it will be again at Montage Mountain for folks who aren't familiar. It's, basically where the concerts are, the ski resorts up that way, the slides, the water park. So it's June 8th and June 9th, and it's pretty much a full 2 days. Tell me first, if you don't mind, what was the initiative behind it? Obviously, you said you're a promoter of yoga. What made you think, a festival? And then and maybe tell me a little bit about what the variety is like for people. Like, because
Absolutely.
people who aren't familiar might be like, well, what's the difference between one yoga class and another? You know what I mean? And why would I want to sample the whole day?
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. So the yoga festival kind of started in a funny way. So the first year of Beer Fest, which was 2015, um, I was bartending at Montage, and the owner, Charlie, was there, and um, we just were talking, and I'm like, do you see how many people came out for a beer festival? I'm like, we don't have anything in this area that's promoting health and wellness. And there's tons of avenues that people are not even aware of. And I want to raise awareness for this. And he's like, I don't care, Chelsea, do whatever you want. And that September, I put together the first yoga festival. And there was like 300 people there for that first one, with just a short amount of time, uh, kind of throwing it together, having done events before. I have a lot of events at the studio, but nothing on that scale by any means. So I was kind of shocked that that many people would come out and want to be a part of it. So every year it's grown since. So it's kind of like me trying to come up with something new and exciting, because essentially it is just a yoga festival with tons of classes, spread all over the water park. And it also has presentations and workshops and vendors and a lot more than that. But how do I keep everyone coming back? So it's great to have people coming from all over the area and the country, but it's even better to bring the same people that come every single year back, because they're the ones that will actually be able to see how much it's grown and changed and how much work I put into it. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be an awesome weekend. We always have great weather, so I'll knock on wood for that. But in addition to having great weather, it's at a water park. So if you want to hop in the wave pool, cool off, that's available. If you want to bring your kids who want nothing to do with yoga, and maybe your husband, right? They can go to the water park and you can have fun at the yoga festival all day. You could take classes from anything from Kundalini to learning about your chakras to learning about a drum circle and how to be a part of a drum circle to um, making your own incense, to a Thai partner yoga class or acro yoga class, to hula hooping and learning how to om and what it means to do an om chant. So there's something for everyone, whether you're a beginner or whether you're extremely seasoned. And the awesome part about the event is there's no registration required. So every yoga festival I've been to, or festival in general, there's always this requirement to sign up for your classes, and there's a limit on how many you can sign up to take, but also how many people can take them. But because we're in such a big area, we are able to kind of have tons of options throughout the day. So we have 8 different areas of classes and presentations throughout the water park. And of those areas, strictly 5 of them are yoga classes. So if you start taking a class and you don't like it, you just get up and go to a different one, and no one's going to say anything. That's what the good part about a non-registration event is. But in addition to that, you're able to try things that you probably would not have. I know every time that I go to an event and I have a limitation on how many classes I could take, I always pick things that I know I'll like, rather than trying something new. And that's kind of what the goal of this event is: connection through abundance, learning, connecting, meeting people, trying new things. So whether, again, you're a seasoned person or brand new, there's going to be tons of classes for you to try. And if you're a beginner, you try something and it's not for you and not something that works for your body, you could leave, go to another one.
Yeah, there's great freedom in that. Yeah, and so I do want to mention to people though, you don't have to sign up for classes, but you do have to buy a ticket. You have
Yeah.
to. But
Yeah.
can you? Yeah, I was gonna say you can't just wander in. But
No, you can't just
um,
pop in.
will you have at the door, or is it? Does it have to be beforehand?
Yep, yep, we have tickets at the door. The ticket sales go until 5 p.m. on Saturday and until 2 p.m. on Sunday. So you could buy them at the door. Of course, they're just going to be a little bit more expensive, but you're welcome to decide that day to come, or you can pre-register as early as the Friday night before, or as early as we put it on September of last year. So
Yeah, so people can just click, and I will include that information in the show notes too. So you can buy ahead of time, or if you want to wing it and just decide that day, you can come on out. What would you say the theme? I don't want to say a theme, but like the connection.
mhm,
So it's not all yoga. There's some things like you mentioned, like the drum circle, different things. Would you say a connection is just like peacefulness, improvement for yourself, or de-stressing? Is there something that what is it that connects these ideas or these presentations in your mind? How do you see that?
absolutely. So the slogan of the event, connection through abundance, was something that actually came to me in a dream. And every year it kind of develops a little bit more. So I didn't even know what it truly meant, but as the event has been growing and becoming more abundant, little aspects have been continuously presented to me. So um, the idea of connection through abundance means that the more we connect and the more we share, the more this will continue to grow. So we in Northeastern Pennsylvania oftentimes live in more of an area of lack than of abundance. I think it's just because it's a coal mine area, and we kind of grew up with the mindset slightly of more lack than abundance. That if someone has more than you, that you'll have less, and that's not really at all how the world works, right? We know that now, and we're getting to know that a little bit more as a civilization, and I think this area as well. But for the event, the goal is to meet people, share what you love, and vice versa. And the more you share that, and the more you tell people what you do, and the things that you like doing, the more you realize that there's so many other people that do the same. And then you create connections on a personal level, right? And then you have this connection of a teacher. So maybe finding a teacher and connecting with a teacher that can help you grow and build your level of knowledge. And then you have this level of connection of self. So we have this mind, body, soul connection that is so much more deeper than just that face value. So what these classes will do, a lot of them will force you to be present. Some will wake you up to be present. Some will teach you how to be present. And all of these ways are why we're there. So whether it's just meeting the teacher that's going to help you learn about it, or you being the person that helps someone else learn about it, is the goal. And the more we connect people together, the more this will continue to keep becoming abundant.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's fantastic. And I mean, I'm all about that. I know, as I say every week when I have a different guest on, I just think it's so important because I look back at like, well, how did I meet this person? It could be through someone else, or if we're networking, just being open to, because I think sometimes we want to shut it down. Like we meet the person, what do they do? Oh, I don't have interest in that, or I don't buy that, or I don't have kids, so I'm not it. But get to know them, keep their business card. And then you might be like, well, I can help them. And then maybe later they help you, or you just teach each other like you're saying. I mean, just being open to learning, I think, is what it's all about. And then you can help one another.
Absolutely. And I think the other really cool part about the event is it is at the water park and the water park's open. So sometimes participants are like, there's like a kid in a bathing suit running through the center of the yoga class. But as yogis, even if you're not a yogi, as someone who is looking to kind of be better, who cares, right? We're there to show people that we don't have to just go to beer festivals, although they're wonderful. We can, as a community, get together and promote wellness and health and for ourselves. So it's to show everyone that's at the water park as well what yoga even is. So again, it's creating this understanding of abundance of yoga. Most people think that yoga is either handstands or laying on the ground. They don't understand anything really in between if they've never taken a class. And even if they did take a class, I've seen hundreds of people, uh, and I'll be like, "Oh, when are you coming to yoga?" And their first response to me is, "Oh, I tried it, and it's not for me." And in person, it's hard for me to not have like a dirty look on my face because I'm like, "Well, how could that be?" Right? There's so many different styles of yoga at this point. There's so many different instructors. There's so much different ways of presenting the same exact information. It's pretty ignorant to say that
Yeah.
you don't like yoga. Try a different teacher, try a different studio. And in my beginner classes, that's like one of the big things that I promote. I'm like, listen, I might not be for you. And guess what? I'm not going to be heard about it. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm not going to be the perfect instructor for you right now. Maybe you need more of a gentle instructor for a while until you get comfortable with this. And then you might be like, oh, I'm ready for the advance. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're looking for a power yoga instructor and that is what I am. And then life changes. You have a child or you get injured or you get old, right? All of these things are just a part of life. So you have to pivot and adjust. And that's okay, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I will admit, I'm not someone who does a lot of yoga, but I've taken, dozens of classes through the years. And you're right. I can't tell you the names of them. Like, I don't know what's hatha, slow
Mhm.
flow. I have taken power before. I mean, right now where I'm at, I would not want to take your class because I'd be falling over because I'm
It's
not
okay.
in the best as I used to be. But I mean, you're right. Every instructor is different, and you have some folks who, they'll ask, is it okay if I adjust your pose? Where some I was like, oh my God, they're going to push me into the floor. But, and there's different styles. And like you're saying, it's good that if you don't like that one, then try another class. And you're right, they're all very different. And then the ones that are just maybe you just do need to like slow down and you do want to just lay there and relax. There's those too. I mean, and it's getting to know that there's variety out there and trying it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's why I love having this event at the water park because um when you look out, you see all of these different types of yoga, whether or not you're taking it. And it's kind of just even if it's the first introduction, it's still like marketing yoga to the people that are at the water park. And if one person out of someone who didn't plan to go there and know anything about yoga may try a class, I did my job.
Yeah, yeah.
My
That's
duty, I
great.
should
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
say.
No, I think it's fantastic. So folks who are listening, is it Nepa Yoga Fest or festival for the website?
It's nepayogafest.com.
Fest. Okay. And I'll put that link in the show notes too, but check it out. And you can maybe look at the schedule. It's out there, see what, piques your curiosity. And to Chelsea's point, maybe something you haven't tried before. And if you don't like it, I mean, I always say if you don't like something, maybe go past that first reaction, right? Because sometimes we're too quick to go, I don't like this. Hang in there for another 5 minutes. And then if you don't, you can hop along, as Chelsea mentioned, you can go to a different, class or selection. But I'll have all that info in the show notes. As I prepare to close the conversation out and we wrap up here, I just want to ask you, and I kind of should have probably asked you this. Well, okay, I'm trying to get away from shoulds. I'm not shitting over myself anymore. Um, what I want to ask you is what is it about yoga that you really connect with? Or, I mean, we did talk about that balance for you, but what is it that it really still does for you that why you're like, I have this passion, I have this belief, I want everyone to try it, to have it as part of their life?
Yeah, it changed my life. So that would be the first reason. Um, I completely shifted my mindset without even knowing that I did in a way that allowed me to still be who I am and this same fiery, chaotic, person that I am, but with more understanding of why I am, in addition to being able to pause before reaction. Because as a fiery person, the instant thing that I want to do is constantly defend myself or defend a certain topic or something that I believe in. And it allowed me to see that it doesn't matter. Pause, listen, see what's next, see what someone else is experiencing, see if you can help them. And if you can't, who cares? Try again or let it be. And that's what yoga is about. It's not just about doing the handstand, it's about learning who you are and how best you can serve this world with this limited amount of time that we have here.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. I mean, and I think it's really well said. I mean, my gosh, I could see why you value it so much. I mean, it's clearly it's meant a lot to you and your path that you've been on and that you continue to be on. So what's next for you? Or do you want to even share with us what can we expect? I mean, you're clearly a serial entrepreneur who's gonna, but I think it's fantastic to have folks like you in northeastern Pennsylvania because, and like this is something that I say. I was born and raised in Scranton, and you know, you did leave the area. I did not live outside this area, but I mean, it's not like I've never left, you know, I've traveled,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I do believe that like there's so much goodness here and there's problems everywhere. Of course, we have our problems, but when people just want to say the negativity on Facebook, like, oh, Scranton's a shithole or this sucks or that sucks, it's like, no, we have problems like everywhere else, but there's so many fantastic people. There's great minds here. There's creative artists. There's great business folks. I mean, scenery, nature. There's so many great things that I really believe in it. And I think someone like you is proof. You can do it. Other people can do it too. If there's something you don't see here in the area, work with someone to make it happen or work on making it happen. So what any idea of what you might want to do next?
so I definitely am someone who likes to be ahead of the curve. Typically, everything that I've done, I brought in and then it spread. And it took a long time for me to swallow that. But now I understand that I'm paving the way. So again, having to listen to the words that I'm actually saying, that it's all about abundance, right? So I can't be upset when someone creates the same business model that I have because I paved the way for that. I've created the standard, and that's pretty awesome. So anything that I do next will probably be something that is not here in this area. Not meaning that it won't be here, but it's not in northeastern Pennsylvania just yet. So I don't know what it'll be. It a lot of these ideas come to me, as I said earlier, kind of on the hokey side of this, in a dream. In a way that someone knows, hey, I'm doing this and Chelsea's going to be a great fit for this. Let's bring her on. So I'm not this type of person writing down like a 5-year plan, which I know is like, what? How could she be a business person and not like that? I think it's obsolete. And I also trust the process. I trust the universe. So what's next? Can't wait to see.
Well, I think we're all going to be curious to see too. I think it's great, seriously. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Chelsea. I think this is fantastic. And I think what you're providing, honestly, for the region is really cool. And I mean, I cannot wait to get to that rooftop. And I want to try yoga and brunch. I think that's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Anything else that you wanted to say in closing? And I will definitely put the links in the show notes for people to check out the yoga festival.
Of course. The only thing I think we didn't talk about was the holistic expo. So that's also at the yoga festival. So if you're like, listen, I don't have time for yoga, I don't want to do yoga, it's not for me. I've tried it 100 times, stop trying to push yoga down my throat. There is a holistic expo and there's presentations there as well. So we have a lecture area, we have a holistic area, and we have presentations inside the holistic expo. In that area, it's $25 to come in. You can shop all the vendors that are outside. You could walk around, see what it's about. It could also be that you have an injury and you can't do yoga right now. So that's one of the other aspects, but you can come and just do the holistic expo.
Oh,
So
great. Okay.
yeah, and then we do also have live music at the end of Saturday. So you can hang out for that as well.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Yeah, I did not realize about the holistic expo. That's great. And that's like if like you said, if someone just isn't, capable of doing the yoga, they can still learn from the presenters and presentations and the vendors. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and we have readers there. We have iridology. We have a lot of holistic people that are explaining their modalities that they do, Reiki, sound healing, um, tons of crystals, and awesome shops that are providing more education on what these tools are. We see crystals everywhere, we see herbs everywhere, but again, it's letting the vendors who are passionate about these things be able to teach us what they do.
That's fantastic. That's great. Well, thank you again, Chelsea, so much. I appreciate your time and all that you are doing for the region. We're excited about it. I know I am for sure. And for those who are listening, again, be sure to check out the show notes. I will have links to buy tickets and to check out the schedule if you just want to take a look at the website. If you're in the region, be sure to check out the Oppenheim building on Lackawanna Avenue. Go in and go to the fifth floor, the rooftop bar. It looks fantastic. So, and listen, next week I will have Dr. Katie Leonard returning from Johnson College. They've been doing some fabulous work there. They always do a great job placing their students in jobs even before they graduate. So we'll check in with her and see what's been going on since we spoke, gosh, almost 2 years ago. But as I always say, I really do thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to share it with others, subscribe, share with a friend, foe, or anyone you know. And if you'd like to be a sponsor of this podcast, you've been hearing me mention Emily from Budget Through Life. She's a sponsor, but if you'd like to help support as a sponsor or make a donation, check out the show notes. I have a link in there and you can always message me. And as I always say every week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.